Hi, Leanne Donahue-Tamplin here. Today I'm interviewing Simone O'Brien. Simone is a survivor of horrific partner violence, and she's now a passionate advocate for all survivors of domestic abuse. She's a motivational speaker in schools, workplaces and community settings, and she's working with agencies, organisations and individuals across Australia to try to reduce the incidence of domestic violence in our country. I know you'll get a lot out of this interview with Simone O'Brien. So, Simone, can you tell me a bit about your background and some of those challenges that you've overcome?
I've been a domestic violence survivor, but prior to that, my background, I knew nothing about domestic violence. Mother of 3 children, love sport, and yeah, my world changed when I met a perpetrator, and he didn't like hearing no for an answer.
Yeah, and was the violence happening throughout the relationship, or was that something that happened after you broke up, or what?
Yeah, no violence. I felt really comfortable with the perpetrator. Never swore at me. Obviously never raised a fist. Never back chatted or yelled at me.
Right.
It was little red flags that were growing inside of me, made me feel sick in the tummy, and they were minor. They were only like deleting contacts out of my phone, money going missing out of my wallet. So and that was just in 9 months.
Right.
That those red flags grew for me.
Yeah, right. And there was one horrific incident, wasn't there? And I'm not going to ask you to talk more about that. But I suppose the focus of this interview is about how have you coped since? So I understand that there was, you were hospitalised and there was a period of time you were in hospital. Is that right?
There was. And, for the first 3 months, obviously in ICU, I don't remember that. It's like a months out of my life. Waking up, I was in the neurosurgical ward then, and I still didn't understand, and no one was allowed to tell me what had happened because of the brain injury. But yeah, I didn't know why I was in hospital. No, like above my head in the hospital, there was a sign, "Do not tell Simone what had happened." And so it's been, how I actually did find out was a change in staff at night, because I had to go to the brain rehab unit, and I was still awake at 9:30 at night. I'll never forget it. And that's how I actually found out what had happened to me.
What, someone on night shift told you by accident?
No. Because of my room was close to the desk and I was still awake. The change in staff were obviously saying I was.
You heard it, right? Wow.
Yeah. So that then obviously I couldn't sleep. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, really? Wow. It's I was having counselling, but I had to get more obviously the next day straight away, because I just couldn't comprehend.
Yeah. And so who was looking after your kids? Was there someone to look after them, or you were in hospital?
Yeah, their biological dad.
Right.
Okay. Actually had to interview him to know that he was the right person.
To
be able to do it, because I had the full custody, and he had to obviously step in and have his family back.
Yeah, right. And so was there years of process or months of process for your recovery? How long were you in?
I'm actually, as I speak today, which is just over 6 years, I'm still going through the process, and I say that I'm a prisoner in my own body for the rest of my life. 51 operations, and I've still got one to go. But I suppose the operation side of it is the easy side to me. It's my jaw, it's my eye, it's the plastics team. It's if I don't have jaw treatment, I can't eat. So that's what I mean. Like it's a lifetime thing for me. And that's where I do fly to Brisbane. I'm situated back in Victoria, but I fly to Brisbane every 10 days for treatment. So yeah.
And can I ask, has there ever been a time when you've wanted to give up? Has it ever felt too hard to keep going?
Because it takes me, even just at home, generally it takes me an hour to and I say dress up and an hour at night to dress down. That's not in just to get dressed in clothes. That's to do my wounds and treat my body. Because I've just had that that positive thought that what I do today will be with me in 10 years. If I don't do it today, I'll regret it in 10 years. So,
Yeah, right.
I look in the mirror some days and I think, oh, why me? Why me? But I've turned everything. No, I haven't had any depression or anything. I've turned everything. Even if there's a setback, I turn it into a positive. And each and every day, I say to myself 3 things: is stay positive, never give up, and keep smiling. And to be honest, I think that's what's made my life turn around. And
so it's almost like a mantra each day.
Yeah. It's an ordeal getting out of the house. And everyone says, "Oh, Simone, you always look so happy and bubbly." And do you know what? I am. My mind is, because I don't remember any assault to the right side of the face. I only remember my arm being broken. That's a good thing. So it's, I look weird and funny, but I'm treating internally to heal externally.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's why I come across so happy and look well.
And have there been any, I suppose I'm thinking extraordinary things like being in the right place at the right time, or luck, or extraordinary help from someone that has, helped you along the way?
Do you know what? Totally. And sometimes I think someone's looking over me. One, they help me survive, what I've been through. But 2, each and every day, I seem to run into someone that, wants to chat to me about what I've been through, or, I get it, someone will ring me. Yeah. So it's like I'm being drawn to people now that need me in their workplace or schools, or, for example, this week, I spoke at a school. And, this 15-year-old boy, he had long hair, and I thought, maybe he's a bit of a larrikin, he probably won't listen to me. Do you know what? He actually, after my talk, came up to me and he said, "Oh, Simone," he goes, "I'm going through the worst time." He goes, I'm the victim, and a 15-year-old girl was actually perpetrating him, like, to the extent she was texting him and wanting to kill him, So,
Wow.
do you know what? I was there to help that 15-year-old boy at the right time, and give him guidance. And so things like that. I was meant to be at that school that day. I don't know this boy for a bar of soap, but I hugged him and I said, awesome for speaking up. That's what we want. And, I said, you're going to go far. Just go and get help now. We need to sort help. And so, like little things from that to, leaving Queensland last week, I ran into Bill Shorten and was speaking to him for 15 minutes about this. So do you know what? It's like, that exactly like, and, getting back to people being there as well. My workplace have been unbelievable, right from when I was fighting for my life, even as I am speaking to you today. Just so much support. And that's why my message is for women is don't be embarrassed or speak up,
Yes. And, there are lots of reasons why people don't, aren't there? There's a lot of shame in our society, I think, about speaking up about domestic violence. So I agree, that's a really great way of getting people to get the support they need. Were there any particular strategies you used to cope? I think you mentioned a couple already. You were getting counselling, you said. You've got kind of a mantra or some kind of positive thinking that you say to yourself all the time. Has there been anything else that you've used?
Reiki.
Reiki? Yeah, okay. Reiki. Is that to do with pain, or is that to do with what's happening?
And I actually use that with my children as well. And the children think it's magnificent because they don't actually talk. They can, it's all the touch and actually, it's a bit of a sad, makes me sad actually when I speak about it, because my eldest daughter, who was 15 at the time, she, I'm too cool for counselling at that age. And it wasn't until she was 18 that my middle daughter, Ashlyn, said, "Mummy, can Ashlyn, why don't we get Gabby to have Reiki?" And Gabby agreed on it. And once Gabby did have Reiki, the therapist actually found out that Gabby actually took blame for what had happened to me. She
Right.
didn't, me and Gab, like, I was a single mum for so long, so having a perpetrator, I was, and Gabby was my best friend, and so finding out that she took blame for something that happened to me, it hit home. But you know what? From the Reiki, I'm actually getting my Gabby back. She's back, smiling and happy. She was carrying it around. So Reiki has been unbelievable.
Yeah. Have you got any, do you think there's any particular character strengths that you have that have helped you get through this? I'll give you some examples of character strengths that I mean. Things like creativity, courage or perseverance, teamwork, self-discipline or forgiveness, connections to others, spirituality or a sense of humour. Any of those things that have...
I suppose definitely courage. If something does go wrong, as I said, I turn it into a positive. If an operation, they say, oh, this is your last operation, but then they say, oh no, Simone, sorry, you've got to have one more. I take that as a positive line, because it's only helping me out. It's getting more benefit for myself than if I didn't have it. And I suppose the self-belief, I believe in myself, in the direction I'm going, and making that change. And I suppose one thing that I've learnt about myself is, prior to this, I didn't love and respect myself, but I knowing I look weird, I absolutely love and respect myself now.
Yeah, right. I guess for me, I keep thinking, you keep saying you look weird. I've seen pictures of you. You don't look weird.
And that's probably a mental thing too now, from, as you said earlier, looking in the mirror, like, I suppose I've seen myself at all different stages, and, and I take that as a positive, because I can only keep improving, and, and that internal care shows external then, from the inside you. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask you a couple of other questions now that are more about violence against women more broadly. Sorry, I got a cough. So what's your understanding of why domestic violence occurs? What are your beliefs about why it's happening, particularly so much, why it's happening so often?
Yeah, and as I said earlier, like, I didn't know anything about domestic violence or anything, but what I'm finding out and realising now, and I hate to say it, but there's a lot of drugs involved in what's happening in our society in Australia, and men aren't accepting that no answer either. And that was my answer, was I didn't want to be in a relationship. And I think men find it hard that women are at an equal level. Like, years ago it used to be, the woman was, the homemaker, and the man was the worker. So he overshone the female. But do you know what? It's equal now, and I don't think men like that's happening. And and it's both sides though in the violence. It's just that men they think they've got the power, and they have, because they kill women, and that's basically drugs, and that power is my biggest thing, is why it's happening.
Right.
That power control.
I think it's a really complex issue, isn't it? I think when as a society we try and blame any, it's always about this, then I think we lose the complexity of it. So why the perpetrator in your life reacted the way he did might be very different to why that perpetrator or a different perpetrator would react in someone else's life. Exactly. So it's kind of like, you mentioned earlier those little red flags and why they're hard to spot. I think it's because it's different in every situation, and we're trying to pull out those consistent themes to try and give people some idea of I don't know, warning signs, or what things are brewing up, so that we can try and stop it from escalating. But there isn't really any two cases that are identical.
No. And you know what, and in my case, I haven't mentioned this yet, but you know, I suppose I want to make a stance, and you know, my red flags were little, but I know they can turn so violent so quickly, and that's, I suppose, my message out to women is any red flag is a no red flag, because I shouldn't be here talking to you about domestic violence, because after the court hearing, I actually found out the perpetrator, because he told me he hadn't been married and no kids, he actually been married twice.
Right.
He assaulted the first wife and she didn't report it.
Yes.
He assaulted the second wife and her parents and didn't report it. So and now I'm here, I'm a third wheel, I survived, you know, and I survived what I did, but he was out to kill me because he didn't like the word no. He didn't like it. And so,
but see, if the violence hadn't escalated to the point that it did with you, you may not have been reporting it either. So I think that's the challenge with sexual assault as well, that the repercussions of reporting are so negative for women that then they are the easiest crimes to get away with, because they can get away with them over and over again. That's a consistent theme I see in my practice, is that women find out later that the guy's actually been violent to numerous people before, or at least abusive at some level, and finally the exes all start talking to each other and realise, you know, they have a lot of respect for one another.
That's it.
So I agree, if we can, but I think that the problem with that is we're encouraging people to put themselves into the spotlight in a legal system that doesn't support them and is going to undermine them and can potentially traumatise them further. So, you know, we've kind of got to have a system that supports that. So
that's right.
Which kind of, you know, leads me on to another question, which is, what do you think needs to happen to reduce violence against women? Because that would be one of the things I would say. We've got to get a legal system that's more effective.
Yes. And you know, and that's where you know, I've been doing a lot of work with the police, and you know, seeing what I've been through, and you know, that's with the first year cadets. So they're seeing it, what can happen firsthand. So I'm hoping because you hear women, you know, they go to the police and they don't want to report it or but we need to report everything. I know it's paperwork, but that's all, you know, it's a tracking system really, isn't it, that everything's got to be documented these days, you know.
Yeah, it does.
There's no sweeping it under the carpet, and it's just got to, you know, to me, and you know, this is something I'm going to hopefully move forward with, is we need to name and shame these men that aren't being very nice, and the women and children, their lives get upheaval because they have to move out of the house. Let's keep the women and children in the house. Let's send these guys over the other side of Australia and put an ankle brace on them, because the jails are too full, and so they're not going to jail. And track them that way so that they can't get back and affect them. And if they do, well then, you know, hopefully there doesn't come a spot in jail that they can go in. But they need to be named and shamed, and not, you know, model collared, and the girl and the females need to feel that they are protected, and the support's there each and every time. So
it's very much reversed, isn't it?
Yes. Yep.
So they, you know, I think in your case the perpetrator went to jail. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, got life for attempted murder.
Right, and I've got to say, with a lot of, I don't know if you even know any of that about me. I don't think I've said any of that before, but most of my clients are survivors of domestic violence or sexual assault. And in most of those cases, the guys don't go to jail. I've had women where they've been charged for defending themselves, and the guys lie. So when it goes to court, I mean, when there aren't obvious injuries, they just lie and say, no, I never did anything like that. The police turn up. I've had police turn up and drag women from the house because he said she's crazy, and put them in psych hospitals. It's not an easy job for the police. It's very hard to walk into that situation with very powerful manipulators and say, see what's really going on. So it's a complex issue to address all up.
Yes.
But I do think, you know, it's what we're doing isn't working. Clearly the statistics are horrific, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah. No. And, you know, is it? We're probably out to 12 days now, but there for a while it was 7 killed in 8 days, you know,
I know. I've got people,
and,
friends overseas telling me that, saying, look at what's happening in Australia, what's going on.
yeah, exactly. And, you know, it's not on. And at present, see, the males just think that they can get away with it. You know, they're not getting, and it's, you know, so I'm, you know, as I say, looking at taking this other action to, because at least then the women and children can stay. They don't have to, you know, find new schools and new homes and different things. It's, no.
All right. Well, the last question I was going to ask you was, what challenges are you still overcoming? But you've kind of described that there's the physical issues that you're still working with on a constant basis, and potentially will always be addressing. Do you think there's you know, was there any, you know, I guess I want to say any benefits? Has there been any positive outcomes from this for you?
I
not that I mean you would want to choose it again. I'm not meaning that.
No. I wouldn't want anybody on the journey I'm on, but do you know what, now it's an incredible journey, and each and every time I see someone or speaking to someone or presenting to someone, it's for my, you know, self-confidence and self-esteem. And I to be honest, and I'm laughing to myself here, and my son goes, "Mummy, how do you get up and speak?" So I don't know, mate, we're not speakers, are we? And that's my thing. I've never ever been a speaker, and you know what? As I mentioned earlier, I'd say that for the first 37 years of my life, I was like in my own apprenticeship in my own body, and I've actually found myself now. And you know, and friends have even said, "Simone, as hard as this is to say to you, but this has happened to you for a reason and a purpose. The real you is coming out in you now." And you know, it's you know, having my one eye and no smell and different things. It's I've learned to live with that, even down to playing tennis. And I've learned, you know, pouring a glass of water, for instance. I've actually got to sit the jug on the glass to be able to pour it. Otherwise I miss it with that conception and whatnot. But look, it's now, look, and that's why now, each day is a new positive day. And if I'm helping that next person, that next, you know, victim, that's what I want to do.
Simone, I really appreciate your time. It's been fabulous to talk to you, and lots of really great things that I think that the people listening can use themselves and take a lot away from talking to you. So I really appreciate your time.